ICE just stormed across California with their raids to arrest migrants, including workplaces and even homes. LA is erupting in protests, and now, LA isn't the safe sanctuary as it was before. Let's get into it.
While support continues to pour in for Boina Forqueta, it's a different tone from Corey Gustafson, former chairman of the Republican Party of San Diego County. He agrees it was an ugly scene, but only because of the reaction from those around the restaurant and because of what he calls hypocrisy from Democratic leaders. None of the 19 people named in the search warrant for using false green cards was identified as violent criminals, which this administration has said is the priority. Although the warrant shows some of the 19 in question had been deported before. Gustafson says you can't ignore criminality altogether.
I've talked to many legal immigrants who have come to our country who are appalled at the fact that they spent years and years and years trying to do it the right way by coming to America, right? By going through our laws and going by our processes.
We want to head back to that breaking news of ICE raids happening in several locations across LA.
Let's get up to Rich Prickett. He's overhead one of those locations in downtown Los Angeles, the Fashion District. Rich?
Yeah, Glenn and Karine, we are back in the Fashion District. This is the Ambiance Apparel store where the FBI, Homeland Security, and ICE agents have been performed a raid a couple of hours ago, and they were inside for quite some time, and we're just now seeing some people that are being detained, being brought out from the facility here. About a couple dozen people that are now being taken into custody. Now, the FBI had brought in some reinforcements to help with the crowd control that had started to surround the building earlier on, and there was quite a scuffle, as a matter of fact, as they were trying to make room for these vans to make their way into the parking lot, where they are now detaining several people from the Ambiance Apparel store here in the Fashion District. And you can see some of that crowd that still remains.
ICE launched coordinated raids across Los Angeles, at garment factories in the Fashion District, big box stores like Home Depot, even residencies.
Immigration enforcement agents were spotted at a Home Depot store in the Westlake District and Ambiance Apparel in LA's Fashion District. Aerial video shows ICE driving down city streets on the same day many students were set to graduate.
Students are graduating all over the place, the day that they should be proud, a day that families get together to celebrate. But today wasn't a beautiful day for many people in Los Angeles.
One teacher says she watched as families were separated.
My school was on high alert. It seemed like less families showed up for my kids. Our friends, neighbors, and family are being kidnapped.
They rounded up over 100 migrants, citing suspected immigration violations and false documentation. That same day, hundreds of protesters flooded the streets, and things got heated fast. Police used tear gas, flashbangs, and pepper spray weapons to disperse them.
Now at 11, chaos erupts as armed federal agents conduct sweeping immigration raids across Los Angeles. Good evening, I'm Micah Ullman.
And I'm Cher Calvin. Dozens were arrested during the sweep as angry protesters clashed with federal agents on the streets of downtown LA.
The surprise raids took place this morning, but the chaos continues into the night as hundreds face off with police. It all began at a Home Depot and then in LA's Garment District as federal agents used flashbang grenades to clear the protesters who were trying trying to disrupt the operation, targeting undocumented workers.
We have live team coverage of the raids and the protests. Lindsay Pena has reaction from the immigrant community. But we begin with Chris Wolf live near the Metropolitan Detention Center where the arrestees are being held tonight. Chris.
So what really ignited these protests across California? ICE agents hit multiple sites across LA, from the Fashion District garment factories to a Home Depot in Westlake, and even private residences and churches.
Tear gas, flashbangs, angry crowds, and heavily armed and armored U.S. immigration and customs enforcement agents marked a volatile Friday in the heart of Los Angeles during a series of immigration sweeps. Agents swarmed into at least 3 locations looking for suspected immigration law violators. The blowback was fast and fierce, with some protesters jumping in front of law enforcement vehicles to prevent them from moving.
They did need to bring in some backup here.
KTLA was in the air and on the ground during the immigration enforcement firestorm. Footage shows federal agents chasing people in the parking lot of a Home Depot in the Westlake district, not far from downtown Los Angeles. Individuals often gather at home improvement stores looking for temporary work opportunities with customers. Another raid unfolded at a clothing store along Town Avenue in the Fashion District.
They arrested dozens in a coordinated militarized operation, even bringing in FBI and ATF agents.
The ICE agents descend on a church in Downey this morning. Now the pastor of the church is speaking out about the ordeal. Good evening. This is the KTLA 5 News at 5:30. I'm Cher Calvin.
Then I'm Micah Olma. The pastor and his wife say they peacefully confronted the armed agents, demanding to know who they were and where they were from.
KTLA's Shelby Nelson joins us live from Downey with more on this breaking story. Shelby?
To share, Micah, we are learning from a community organization called Union del Barrio that there were 2 separate incidents at 2 separate churches here in the city of Downey where this happened. And one of the incidents we're learning more details about happened at Downey Memorial Christian Church. The pastors say that a man who was in their parking lot was surrounded by federal agents.
Due to the ICE raids, several roads were closed that disrupted the daily lives of the residents. At several raid locations, ICE agents clashed with community members. When the detained people were brought to the federal building, protesters were dispersed through pepper spray and less lethal weapons.
We begin here at 7 o'clock with Chris Wolf outside the Metropolitan Detention Center with the latest details on the immigration enforcement actions throughout the day. Chris.
Yeah, Micah and Cher, unrest obviously continues tonight over the immigration sweeps today. These ICE raids, much of downtown LA is closed off. We are near the detention center where a lot of the people rounded up today have been transported. Crowds are gathering all throughout this area and outside the federal building. Law enforcement personnel in riot gear are keeping a close watch on the tense atmosphere. They've been firing rubber bullets and pepper spray for crowd control at times. As I said, we are near the Metropolitan Detention Center where a lot of the people who were rounded up and arrested and handcuffed today were taken. Clearly, the situation has been explosive and chaotic.
Protesters even blocked the 101 freeway, bringing the city to a standstill. And by evening, 118 migrants had been detained in LA.
You are watching the KTLA 5 News at 5 o'clock. I'm Micah Olman along with Cher Calvin as we continue our coverage of Day 5 of protests of ICE raids in downtown Los Angeles. The top line over the last hour or so has been a large number of protesters making their way for a brief time onto the 101 freeway. We know all southbound lanes were closed for a time. They briefly made their way onto the 101 northbound, at which point we saw a large contingent of CHP officers moving in with the help of LAPD, surrounding those people that were on the freeway and rather quickly getting them off the northbound lanes and eventually out of the southbound lanes, allowing traffic to flow freely once again. And this may well be the fallout from that for this large group of people as they are being placed into handcuffs and placed under arrest and taken away from the scene here as we see this large group of people, many of them on the freeway not 30 minutes ago.
ICE raids were conducted at local small restaurants as well, where they received reports of undocumented immigrants working. Even the owner of the restaurant was arrested for hiring them without a proper check.
And his parents own restaurants, so he understands the challenge of finding employees. But he says you shouldn't have to rely on illegal immigrants to do the work.
There seems to be a victim mentality by the owner of this restaurant saying, woe is me. We're just, why are you attacking us? What have we done wrong? Well, he broke the law by hiring illegal immigrants.
Gustafson says, simply put, American jobs should be for American workers.
Several business owners and the immigrant working there were arrested as well for harboring criminals.
Yeah, good morning, Eric and Netta. That's right. Well, first we noticed Homeland Security, Border Protection, and drug enforcement all here showing up yesterday. This was a pretty intense and large federal law enforcement presence. They showed up in tactical gear. They were armed, detaining multiple people. So it was a clear message. It was an immigration raid happening here in El Cajon. But I want to show you aerial footage of what it looked like yesterday. This is right off of Magnolia Avenue. The business is called San Diego Powder and Protective Coating. You can see multiple people being handcuffed with zip ties and being escorted out of the facility. Family members quickly started to show up. You could see the emotional toll on their faces as soon as they heard what was happening. Families even telling us that the workers here have never committed any harm and simply focus on doing their job. Now, according to the search warrant from federal law enforcement, the business harbored and kept employing migrants who were using false statements. It says SDPC was brought to the attention of federal agents in 2022 while they were conducting a drug trafficking investigation. We spoke with the owner of the facility this morning, and he says this is a family business that's been open for years.
Even further investigations were conducted for such businesses. And let's take a look at the response of one of these business owners.
Since then, there's been an ongoing investigation against his facility and the employees who work here. Johnson says he's confident in his hiring process. He acknowledged that some bad actors slipped through the cracks. However, federal officials say multiple people have been hired without the proper vetting. So according to the affidavit, last Wednesday, an undercover HSI agent applied for a job at the company using fake documents. The agent was then hired, and employees even told them the company has accepted fraudulent papers. So here's how the owner of the business responded.
We signed this contract for the Border Patrol. With the signing of the contract, we had to submit background checks for personnel, and I submitted about 15 people for background checks to be able to work on the job site. Apparently, during that vetting those people for the background checks, there was a couple people that came up with bad documents.
People hit the streets in big numbers, hundreds marching, blocking highways, and challenging military units. After several days, curfews, tear gas, rubber bullets, and over 400 arrests were followed.
In El Cajon, thanks for keeping it here. It's 11:30. I'm Eric Connors.
And I'm Netta Irampour. You see in this video, it does show federal agents taking several people into custody. CBS 8's Regina Yorita joining us live from El Cajon to give us details from the man in charge of that facility. You were able to talk to him today, Regina. What did he say?
Yeah, good morning, Eric and Netta. That's right. Well, first we noticed Homeland Security, Border Protection, and drug enforcement all here showing up yesterday. This was a pretty intense and large federal law enforcement presence. They showed up in tactical gear. They were armed, detaining multiple people.
This storm of enforcement is changing the face of California and the nation's immigration debates.
This morning, a new curfew in parts of downtown Los Angeles as the protests against ICE stretch into another day. Police on horseback called in, breaking up crowds.
Which side are you on? Drop a comment, hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more on this unfolding story.